In this final video, we're going to look at the elasticity of supply as well as its determinants. The elasticity of supply measures how responsive the quantity supplied is to a change in price. So here we want to know if the price increases by 5%, are the producers going to increase production by a lot or by a little? The more responsive the producers are to a change in price, the more elastic the supply curve. Here's the general formula for the elasticity of supply. Looks very similar to what we saw for the elasticity of demand. The only difference being is that in the numerator, you're looking at the percentage change in quantity supplied. Visually, this is what we're trying to pick up. So we have two supply curves here. Supply curve for good I is given by the relatively steeper curve, the supply curve for good E by the flatter curve. In both of these markets, at a price of 40, the producers are willing to provide 80 units. What happens if the price increases from $40 to $50? Well, at $50, the producers of good I will increase their production from 80 units to 85 units. Fairly small increase in the quantity supplied for the given increase in the price. However, at $50, the producers of good E will increase their production from 80 units to 170 units. The producers of good E are more responsive to the change in price. Here's some general properties and definitions for the price elasticity of supply. First of all, the price elasticity of supply is always non-negative. According to the law of supply, if the price of a product increases, the quantity supplied will increase, and vice versa. If the price of a product decreases, the quantity supplied will decrease. If the price elasticity of supply is greater than 1, we say that the supply curve is elastic. That implies that for a 5% increase in price, production will increase by more than 5%. The producers are very responsive to the increase in price. If the price elasticity of supply is less than 1, we say that the supply is inelastic. That would suggest for a 5% increase in price, production only increases by maybe 1%. Producers do not respond a lot to the increase in price. Finally, if the price elasticity of supply is equal to 1, then we have what we call unit elastic supply. When calculating the price elasticity of supply, we use the midpoint formula, the same midpoint formula that we used when we calculated the price elasticity of demand. Now, there are two special cases worth mentioning. A perfectly inelastic supply curve is vertical. And simply what this says is that it doesn't matter if the price increases 1, 2, 3, 4% or decreases 1, 2, 3, 4%. There is no change in the quantity produced. So this might be, for instance, you have fixed stadium seating, and no matter how much the ticket prices go up, in the short run, for instance, we are committed to selling, or we are constrained to selling only a limited number of tickets. Another special case is what's known as a perfectly elastic supply curve, and this is a horizontal curve. What this curve says is as long as the consumers are willing to pay a price that is given by where this supply curve intersects the y-axis, as long as the consumers are willing to pay that price, the sellers are willing to provide them with as much of the product as they want. Any price that's a little bit lower, they're not going to provide any of the product. So they're extremely sensitive to the price, and the same would be true for any price that's a little bit higher. The higher one's interesting, and we'll leave that one for a question that we'll talk about in class. Now, these two special cases just don't apply to supply curves. You also have perfectly inelastic demand curves and perfectly elastic demand curves, which have these similar shapes.